Welcome to this explainer. Let's dive right into a seriously hidden world of spiritual warfare. Today, we're unpacking a gripping first-hand account of occult practices. We'll be exposing some modern scams and exploring chilling claims of ancient tribal magic. This isn't just theory either. We're drawing entirely from a deeply revealing interview with an actual Aghoris practitioner to help us grasp the mechanics of what supposedly happens in the shadows.
Imagine stepping in to help someone, only to have an unseen force threaten you directly, literally saying, "You don't know who I am. Leave her alone." This chilling warning allegedly came from a dark tantric during an intense astral battle, and honestly, it perfectly sets the stage for our descent into the unknown today. According to the source material, this was a real message, and it wasn't delivered over the phone. It came right through a possessed victim. To understand how an invisible war like this is even possible, we first need to define the combatants.
So let's break this down. Authentic Aghoris versus the commercial tantric. To understand these claims, we have to separate the authentic philosophy of Aghoris, which relies purely on internal, limitless energy, from commercial tantrics who depend on physical tools. The source insists that a true Aghoris is fundamentally simple. They don't need elaborate setups. Their power supposedly comes purely from intense devotion and their own internal energy. In contrast, a traditional tantric is described as being limited by specific rituals. They require physical objects, certain yantras, and specific locations, like graveyards, just to perform their acts.
And that brings us to a really crucial point. The whole Bollywood Aghoris, it's largely a myth. Authentic Aghoris does not require skulls, lemons, or consuming flesh. The stereotypical image of skull-carrying, dark magic-wielding practitioners is debunked by the source as a mere facade, basically a shock tactic designed to keep the public at a safe distance. The practitioner notes that true Aghoris is really about dissolving the ego and societal rules. Those grotesque practices you see in movies, sometimes they're just an outward show to ensure they're left alone to focus on their actual spiritual path.
Okay, moving on to a question that drives a massive underground industry today. Is Vashikaran, or supernatural mind control, actually real? You've probably seen advertisements for this, right? Wild claims that someone can make another person fall deeply in love with you or obey your every command. But what does an actual insider have to say about this booming industry?
Well, here's the reality check. Exposing Vashikaran scams. According to the Aghoris, those 48-hour guarantees are completely fake. Modern scammers absolutely exploit desperate people with this concept. True influence, the source argues, works more like a slow termite. You literally cannot forcefully implant emotions where there is zero connection. The human mind is incredibly powerful and naturally resistant to this stuff. If real influence is exerted, it supposedly takes immense time and absolutely requires pre-existing emotions to even function. Basically, the fast cash Vashikaran market is primarily designed to exploit vulnerable people and drain money from the heartbroken. To understand how real encounters supposedly do work, the source defines the concept of sukshma sharir, or the subtle body. This is an energetic form beyond the physical body, claimed to be the medium through which advanced practitioners interact with the spiritual realm. Occult practitioners believe that beyond our physical flesh, the gross body, as they call it, exists this energetic subtle layer. When these spiritual workers claim to interact with entities, bind curses, or even engage with otherworldly beings, they are allegedly doing so entirely through this subtle body, completely bypassing the physical realm. Now, this brings us to a very strong warning from the source. Fake practitioners actually use the subtle body concept to physically exploit women during Bhairavi sadhana. Fraudulent babas manipulate these ancient concepts as a convenient excuse to abuse vulnerable women seeking spiritual help. The Aghoris explicitly warns that some fakes tell women they need to perform this specific ritual, which is strictly intended for the subtle body, by the way, but then they use it to force physical sexual exploitation in the real world. The source emphasizes that a true spiritual master never, ever needs to make inappropriate physical contact to heal or empower someone. All right, let's dive into the climax of the source material, the Bihun case file. This is a supernatural investigation into a 12-year-old tribal curse. The source recounts being called to help a young woman who was studying for her police exams, but she was entirely paralyzed by this deeply rooted curse. During the day, she was completely physically capable, but as soon as the sun went down, a horrifying transformation would supposedly take place.
In this timeline is where things get truly terrifying. The sheer exhausting routine of this paranormal attack is staggering. Every single night, exactly at 8 p.m., the possession violently bent the victim's body. Unseen forces would allegedly take control, pushing her torso into the air with her head and feet on the ground. And she would remain trapped in that agonizing position until 3 a.m., when the daily possession ended. This wasn't some quick overnight fix. It took a total of 6 grueling months for the Aghori to finally solve the case. Half a year of intense spiritual combat.
21. That staggering number represents the amount of jinns the Aghori claims to have forcefully removed from the victim at the Mihandipur Badaji temple. And get this, that was before the real fight even began. To stabilize her enough just to bring her home, they took her to this renowned temple for an initial clearing. But horrifyingly, removing these 21 distinct entities didn't actually cure the curse. It merely peeled back the very first layer of defense set up by the dark tantric who had targeted her.
And that's when the situation escalated. You were looking from the roof, your car number is... During a ritual at the victim's house, the dark tantric responsible for the curse allegedly contacted the Aghori remotely, directly through the girl. This wasn't his standard spirit. It was the tantric himself projecting his consciousness. To prove his power and intimidate them, he accurately described where the Aghori had been standing on the roof earlier that day and literally recited their exact license plate number. It was a clear, calculated threat meant to make the healer back down.
But the healer didn't back down. The counterattack involved 3 yagnas, or fire rituals, performed in a single night to permanently seal the dark tantric's powers. The Aghori claims to have run this astral war not by attacking first, but by absorbing the tantric's blows all night long. It's a fascinating strategy. Instead of immediately fighting back, the Aghori just let the tantric completely exhaust his energetic attacks against them. Once the attacker's guard was down, they performed these 3 massive fire rituals. This counterattack allegedly didn't kill the tantric, but permanently locked away his dark abilities, rendering him powerless to ever harm that girl or anyone else ever again.
Now, let's move into even darker territory, entering Chhattisgarh, the epicenter of deadly tribal magic and the home of Banasur. The sources' accounts point specifically to these tribal regions where ancient magic is reportedly used for fatal purposes. In these deep, isolated areas, like Banasur, named after a mythological demon, practitioners apparently use natural elements right out of the jungle to craft incredibly potent, sometimes fatal curses that outside practitioners rarely even know how to dismantle. Which brings us to the terrifyingly precise mechanics of Banyan Tantra. Here are the steps. Step 1. A tribal tantric crafts a physical arrow or thread. Step 2. A 1.5-inch water blister forms on the victim. And step 3, on the 3rd day, the blister bursts, resulting in death. It's shockingly specific. The Aghori states that standard remedies absolutely do not work here. To stop something this deadly, you actually have to respectfully petition the regional goddess Danteshwari to intercept the curse.
Okay, after detailing all these harrowing encounters, let's bring it back to the light. How can you protect your own household from unseen energies? Thankfully, the explainer mercifully provides some grounded, practical advice directly from the source on how everyday people can protect their homes from dark magic. You don't need to be an Aghori to maintain a safe spiritual environment. In fact, the most potent protections rely on consistency and discretion.
Let's look at these 3 remedies for home protection. Action 1, keep your worship secret. Why? Because bragging about your spiritual experiences invites negative attention and prevents energetic theft. Action 2, place an idol of Bhairav in the temple if you have a female deity. This guards the goddess's energy. Action 3, never stop your Kul Devi or pitcher worship. Maintaining your ancestral protective shields is absolutely crucial. What's really interesting here is just how simple these protections are. Honoring your ancestors and keeping things private basically creates an impenetrable shield against negative forces.
So what does this all mean? If these ancient, invisible wars are truly being fought around us every day, how safe is your subtle body right now? As we wrap up this explainer, it leaves us with a fascinating and maybe slightly unsettling question about the hidden spiritual ecosystem that might be operating just beyond our everyday perception. We've explored the claims of authentic Aghor, the stark warnings against scammers, and the intricate world of astral battles. Whether you view these as psychological phenomena or literal spiritual warfare, these accounts definitely urge us to respect the unknown. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the shadows. Stay curious and take care of your energy out there.